On the morning of July 17, 1995, a Monday with clear skies and temperatures that would reach Trisset's Edigans throughout the day, the Rodriguez family began what was supposed to be a 3-day adventure through the Jalapão State Park in the newly created state of Tocantins. Antonio Rodriguez, 42 years old, a university biology professor at the Federal University of Goiás, his wife Helena, 39 years old, a nurse, and the couple's children, Lucas, 15 years old, and Marina, 12 years old, left the small town of Materos with a local guide. Sebastião Pereira, 51 years old, known in the region as Tioa do Cerrado, for his vast knowledge of the local flora and fauna. The group had arrived in the region the day before and stayed in a simple inn in the town. Witnesses reported that the family was very enthusiastic about the expedition, especially Antonio, who intended to collect plant samples from the Cerrado for his academic research. According to the record left in the inn's guest book, the Rodriguez family planned to take a little-known trail to the Serra do Espírito Santo, a more remote area of the park known for its impressive rock formations and crystal-clear water springs. They were well equipped for the expedition, as later reported by Maria das Dores, 63 years old, the owner of the inn where the family stayed. The professor had maps, a compass, large canteens, and backpacks filled with food for several days. He seemed to know what he was doing. Maria das Dores was one of the last people to see the family before their disappearance. At 6:30 a.m. that morning, the Jeep rented by the Rodriguez family, driven by Sebastião, left Materos heading to the fall. Starting point of the trail, located about 45 kilometers from the town, in an area known as Morro Vermelho. According to the plan registered at the park's visitor center, the group intended to camp for 2 nights in designated areas and return on Wednesday, July 19th. The weather conditions in that July of 1995 were typical of the dry season in Jalapão. Hot and sunny days with temperatures easily exceeding 30 degrees Celsius and cold nights with thermometers dipping as low as 12 degrees Celsius during the early mornings. The extremely low humidity, characteristic of the region at this time of year, made the vegetation dry and increased the risk of wildfires, which are common in Brazil's Cerrado. The last confirmed sighting of the group was made by 2 local fishermen, who saw the family and the guide around 10 a.m. that same day. Following a trail that bordered the Rio Novo, they waved to us from the opposite bank. The children seemed excited, taking photos of the landscape, said Jose Ribamar, one of the fishermen. In a statement later given to the police, the disappearance was only noticed on Thursday, July 20th, when the family did not return to the inn as expected, nor did they make contact with relatives in Goiânia. Concerned by the 24-hour delay, Maria das Dores contacted the small Materos police station around 4 p.m. that day. At first, I thought they might have decided to extend their trip, but when they didn't appear on the second day, I felt something was wrong, the inn owner stated. The alert initially mobilized just 3 police officers from the town, who carried out a first check on the access road to the park. The Jeep used by the family was found parked exactly where it should have been, at the point agreed upon for their pickup on their return, near a small abandoned guardhouse, which served as a reference point for trekkers. Inside the vehicle, the police found only a few maps and a half-empty water bottle, indicating that the group had set off on the trail as planned but had not returned to the meeting point. On Friday, July 21st, after confirming the disappearance, the first official search team was assembled, consisting of 6 military police officers, 4 firefighters from Porto Nacional, the nearest larger city, 220 kilometers away, and 8 local volunteers familiar with the region. The first 48 hours of the search focused on the original route planned by the family, but no signs were found except for a camping area with traces of a small campfire, presumably from the first day of the expedition. Authorities contacted the Rodriguez family's relatives in Goiânia. Carlos Rodriguez, Antonio's brother, immediately traveled to Materos to accompany the search efforts. My brother was very careful, especially when traveling with the children. He wouldn't take risks in unfamiliar terrain without being sure of the path, Carlos said upon his arrival in the region on Saturday, July 22nd. The disappearance of the Rodriguez family and guide Sebastião quickly gained regional attention. The press in the newly established state of Tocantins gave extensive coverage to the case, highlighting the mobilization of rescue teams and the growing concern as the days passed without any news. The case was also reported in national newspapers, such as Folha de São Paulo and Globo, with a small note in the Sunday, July 23rd edition. As the days passed, the search and rescue operation intensified. By Monday, July 24th, a week after the disappearance, the rescue team had grown to 32 people, including specialists in remote area searches from Brasilia, sniffer dogs, and 2 helicopters from the military police of Tocantins, which flew over the region daily when weather conditions permitted. The search area was divided into quadrants, with teams methodically covering each sector, initially focusing on the original route planned by the family, and later expanding to alternative routes the group may have taken. The difficulties were enormous. The rugged terrain of Jalapão, with its sand dunes, canyons, rocky plateaus, and dense cerrado vegetation in some areas, complicated both the movement of the teams and the visibility of potential signs of the missing persons. On the 8th day of the search, a discovery brought a new element to the investigation. A team found, about 3 kilometers off the original trail, a small camping area showing signs of recent occupation. At the site, they found remnants of a campfire, still with ashes. An empty canteen identified as belonging to the Rodriguez family, recognized by Carlos from the initial R, engraved on its base, and fragments of a notebook that appeared to have been used as a field diary by Andan I.O. In the fragments of the notebook, we found notes dated July 18th, the second day of the expedition. Antonio mentioned a route change and unmapped rock formations, but the pages were partially damaged by moisture and did not provide complete information about the new direction taken by the group, explained Major Roberto Almeida, the coordinator of the search efforts. This discovery led to a complete reorientation of the operation. The teams began exploring a new sector southwest of the original trail, toward an area known locally as Serra das Pratas, a set of rock formations less visited by tourists due to difficult access. Meanwhile, investigators from the civil police conducted in-depth interviews with local residents about Sebastião Pereira, the guide who accompanied the family. The profile that emerged was that of a man respected in the community, with over 2 decades of experience as a guide in the region. Tio knew the Jalapão like the back of his hand. If anyone could bring that family back safely, it was him, said Joe Nunes, 67, a longtime friend of the guide. However, some contradictory information emerged. 2 residents reported that in the weeks leading up to the disappearance, Sebastião had shown an unusual interest in stories about alleged old mining operations in Serra das Pratas. He asked me several times about the stories my grandfather used to tell about precious stones found in that area in the 1950s, revealed Manuel da Silva, 72, a former resident of Materos. This information raised the possibility that Sebastião may have intentionally diverted the group from the original route to explore areas with potential mineral interest. This theory gained traction when it was discovered that the guide had recently faced financial difficulties due to health problems. In his family, alongside the field search, police authorities investigated the Rodriguez family's background. Antonio was a respected academic with numerous publications on the flora of the Brazilian Cerrado. Helena worked as head nurse in a public hospital in Goiânia and had no history that would suggest involvement in suspicious activities. The children, Lucas and Marina, were good students, according to information provided by the school they attended. On the 10th day of the search, July 27th, a new element emerged. A group of researchers conducting a bird survey in the region reported having seen, 3 days before the disappearance alert, a dense column of smoke coming from the direction of Serra das Pratas. At the time, they presumed it was one of the frequent natural wildfires of the Cerrado, but in light of the disappearance, the information took on new significance. That smoke didn't seem typical of the natural wildfires in the Cerrado. It was more concentrated and darker, as if something specific was burning intensely, said Claudia Mendes, 36, the biologist leading the research team. The police then raised a new hypothesis, the possibility of an accident involving fire, perhaps a campfire that got out of control, especially considering the extremely dry conditions of the Cerrado at that time of year. The search efforts intensified in the Serra das Pratas area, but the extremely rugged terrain, with rock formations that created natural labyrinths, greatly complicated the team's work. After 2 weeks of intensive searching, on July 31st, the authorities scaled down the operation, keeping only smaller teams in the field and focusing on the analysis of satellite images available of the region. Limited resources given the technology available in 1995. One aspect that intrigued investigators was the complete absence of signs of the missing persons, aside from the few items found at the second campsite. "It's like they evaporated," commented a frustrated detective Paulo Henrique Santos, who was responsible for the case. "Even in fatal accidents in remote areas, we usually find more traces: backpacks, equipment, clothing." Antonio Rodriguez's meticulous profile, described by family and colleagues as extremely careful and well-prepared, made the disappearance even stranger. He always carried a small emergency signaling kit on his expeditions, including a mirror for solar reflection and flares, said a colleague from the university. No sign of these items was found, which could suggest that the group had neither the time nor the means to use them. In mid-August, with nearly a month of fruitless searches, the official operation was formally concluded, though the authorities kept the case open. Carlos Rodriguez, unable to accept the decision, organized private search teams that continued exploring the region for another 3 months until November 1995, when the arrival of the rainy season made it practically impossible to access certain areas of the park. The case of the Rodriguez family became one of the most intriguing disappearances in recent Brazilian history. In the following years, various theories emerged, ranging from natural accidents to speculations about encounters with illegal miners, or even criminal groups that might have used the park's remote areas for illicit activities. However, no concrete evidence was found to support any of these theories. After the disappearance of the Rodriguez family, the case gradually faded from national news, though it remained alive in local memory. The small town of Materos, which had once been known only for its natural beauty, now carried the shadow of this unresolved mystery. Local tour guides often mentioned the case to visitors as a cautionary tale about the park's dangers. During the years that followed, there were some moments when the case briefly returned to public attention. In 1998, 3 years after the disappearance, a special report on the TV Globo program Linha Direita reconstructed the case, generating a new wave of interest and some leads with alleged information, all of which, however, led to dead ends. In 2000, a group of researchers conducting a geological survey in Serra das Pratas found remnants of what seemed to be an old campsite in a small cave. Among the items recovered was a broken compass, which, after analysis, was identified as similar to the model Antonio Rodriguez carried, according to his brother's description. However, it was impossible to confirm with certainty if the item belonged to the missing professor, and no other evidence was found at the site. The Rodriguez family never completely abandoned the search. Carlos, Antonio's brother, made annual trips to Jalapão, usually on the anniversary of the disappearance, to distribute posters and talk to local residents. Maybe someone knows something? Maybe they're afraid to speak, or maybe they don't realize the importance of what they know. He said during one of these visits in 2005, the real turning point in the case occurred in March 2023, almost 28 years after the disappearance. A group of geologists from the University of Brasília was conducting a detailed mapping of rock formations in the Serra das Pratas region as part of a park expansion project. During this work, the team, led by Dr. Luciana Campos, 42, made an extraordinary discovery. We were documenting an interesting sandstone formation when one of the students noticed unnatural marks at the base of a large, cable-shaped rock, reported Dr. Campos. At first, we thought they were just erosion marks, but upon closer examination, we realized they were carvings made by human hands. The rock in question, a tabular formation approximately 3 meters wide by 2 meters tall, was partially sheltered by a natural overhang, creating a small protected area from the elements. On the underside of this rock, almost hidden and heavily worn by time, there were carvings in the stone. When we cleaned the surface and applied low-angle lighting photography techniques, we were able to distinguish not just symbols, but what appeared to be a rudimentary map of the region, along with some words and initials, explained Dr. Mauricio Santana, 38, an archaeology specialist who was called in to analyze the discovery. The carvings, likely made with the point of a knife or similar metal object, included the initials R, H, R, LR, MR, and SP, which exactly matched the initials of the Rodriguez family members and the guide Sebastião Pereira. Beneath the initials, there was a partially legible date, 190,795. This corresponded to the third day of the expedition, when the family was expected to return. Even more impressive was the rudimentary map carved into the rock. Although simplified, it clearly showed recognizable geographic formations in the region, including what appeared to be the course of a river, distinct rock formations, and a small, X-shaped symbol at a specific point, about 7 kilometers south of the location where the rock with the inscriptions was found. The map had an arrow pointing south with the word water, partially legible, and another inscription that seemed to say cave or grotto near the X, Dr. Santana detailed. It was evident that this had been intentionally left as a message. The discovery was immediately reported to the authorities, and a new investigation was launched. The news quickly spread through national media, reigniting interest in a case that had been largely forgotten by the general public. Carlos Rodriguez, now 76 years old, was one of the first to arrive at the site after being notified of the discovery. I immediately recognized my brother's handwriting, he said, visibly emotional. The way he wrote the A was very characteristic, with a small stroke at the base. I have no doubt that it was him who made these marks. A new search operation was organized, now with much more advanced technologies than those available in 1995. Drones equipped with thermal cameras flew over the area. Three-dimensional mapping of the terrain was conducted, and search teams used high-precision GPS to follow the exact path indicated by the map carved into the rock. The X on the map led the teams to a remote area where several small caves formed at the base of a rocky cliff. The region, locally known as the Stone Labyrinth, had not been fully explored during the original search due to the extremely rugged terrain and the dense vegetation that at the time covered parts of the access routes. Never give up on the truth if you believe that all the missing deserve to be found, a message read in the comments. On April 12, 2023, after 2 weeks of intensive searching, following the directions on the map found on the rock, the rescue team arrived at the area marked with the X The location was a small cave, almost imperceptible from a distance, hidden by a rocky outcrop and partially covered by vegetation that had grown over the nearly 3 decades since the family's disappearance. The cave's entrance, an opening about 1 meter high and 60 centimeters wide, was so discreet that it would easily have gone unnoticed without the precise coordinates. Upon entering the space, the investigators came across a scene that finally provided answers to the mystery that had lingered for almost 28 years. Inside the small cave, which expanded into a chamber of approximately 4 square meters, human remains were found. The preliminary forensic analysis, conducted on-site by Dr. Ricardo Mireles, the medical examiner who was accompanying the team, identified the remains of 5 individuals, 2 adult males, 1 adult female, and 2 young individuals, a teenager, and a pre-adolescent. The position of the bodies suggests that they took shelter in this location intentionally, explained Dr. Mireles. They were all close together, in positions that indicate they passed away while sleeping or resting, without signs of violence or struggle. Alongside the remains, several personal items were found that confirmed their identities. A wristwatch with the engraving Antonio with love, Helena, 1990. On the back, a necklace with a butterfly-shaped pendant, which Carlos Rodriguez confirmed belonged to Marina. A Swiss Army knife with the initials SP engraved, an old camera, and most revealing of all, an improvised diary made from the pages of a field notebook, sealed inside a hermetically closed plastic container. The diary, written by Antonio Rodriguez, provided a detailed account of the family's final days and revealed the true sequence of events that led to the tragedy. The entries, dated from July 17th to 21st, 1995, chronicled the journey from the beginning to the final moments. According to Antonio's account, on the second day of the expedition, July 18th, the group decided to explore an area not planned in the original itinerary. After Sebastiu mentioned interesting rock formations that might contain rare plant, species of interest to the professor's research. During this exploration, a sudden sandstorm, a rare but not unprecedented phenomenon in Jalapão during the dry season, caught the group off guard, causing them to lose their bearings. 190795. Third day. We're still disoriented after the storm. Sebastiu admitted that we are in unknown territory, compass damaged in yesterday's fall. We are following the watercourse, hoping it will lead us to some known reference point. Water and food are running low. Helena is trying to keep the children calm, but I can see the fear in her eyes. I have to be strong for everyone. The diary reported that while trying to find their way back, the group ventured deeper into the labyrinthine region of Serra das Pratas. On the 4th day, Sebastiu suffered a serious fall from a rock formation while trying to get a better view of the area to orient himself. Though he survived, he suffered a broken leg that severely limited his mobility. 20,795. Critical situation. Sebastiu is injured, high fever, possible infection. Water is nearly gone. We found this small cave that offers shelter from the scorching sun. I decided we should stay here and conserve energy. Before, I carved our initials and a map on the Mai. Large flat rock to the north, hoping rescue teams might find it. If anyone reads this, we are in the cave marked with an X on the map. The final entry, dated July 21st, was brief and poignant. 210795. Last day with water. Sebastiu worsened during the night. Helena shows signs of severe dehydration. Lucas and Marina are scared but incredibly strong. I'm proud of them. If we don't survive, I want them to know we tried everything and that we loved each other. To the end. I leave this record in the hope that someday it will be found and our families can have peace. Forgive us for not making it back home. The subsequent forensic analysis conducted at the Forensic Institute of Palmas, confirmed that the probable cause of death for the five was severe dehydration combined with exposure to the extreme conditions of the Cerrado. The dating estimated that the deaths occurred between July 22nd and 24th, 1995, just a few days before the rescue teams located the group's second campsite. The most tragic part is that they were less than 10 kilometers from the point where we found the canteen back in 1995, lamented Major Roberto Almeida, who participated in the original search and was invited to join the new operation. Had we found those carvings on the rock at the time, we might have arrived in time. The discovery brought closure to the families after nearly 3 decades of uncertainty. The remains were finally buried in a ceremony held in Goiânia, attended by hundreds of people, including former university colleagues, Antonio's former students, Helena's co-workers, and the grown-up friends that Lucas and Marina had left behind. The Rodriguez family's case prompted significant changes to safety and rescue protocols in the Jalapão State Park. New regulations were implemented, requiring all guides and visitors to use GPS devices and satellite trackers. Checkpoints were established along the park's most popular trails, and a detailed registration system for all expeditions was put in place. In September 2023, a memorial dedicated to the Rodriguez family and Sebastião Pereira was inaugurated at the park's visitor center. The memorial includes an exact replica of the rock with the inscriptions, preserving the final testimony of a family that, even in the face of extreme adversity, demonstrated remarkable presence of mind by leaving clues that, though found late, finally revealed their story. What impresses me the most is the clarity of thought my brother maintained until the end, reflected Carlos Rodriguez during the inauguration of the memorial. Even knowing they might not survive, he thought about the families left behind, about the closure we needed. This map on the rock was his last act of love. The case of the Rodriguez family remains a powerful reminder of the dangers of wild areas, even for well-prepared individuals, and the importance of proper safety systems in natural parks. It also illustrates how, even decades later, the truth can finally come to light, bringing peace to those left behind, carrying the weight of uncertainty. The photographs recovered from the camera, found in the cave, were carefully restored by specialized technicians. The preserved images on the undeveloped film showed happy moments of the family during the first days of the expedition. Lucas and Marina smiling next to a waterfall. Helena gazing at a spectacular sunset over the golden dunes. Antonio excitedly examining a rare plant. Sebastião pointing out rock formations on the horizon. These images, now part of the memorial, are silent witnesses to the final moments of joy of a family united until the end by love and the adversity they shared. The story of the Rodriguez family and the map carved on the rock transcends the mystery of a disappearance. It is a testament to human resilience, the instinct to leave a legacy even in the darkest moments, and the importance of never giving up the search for the truth, even if it takes nearly 3 decades for that truth to be revealed. If you've watched this far, it's because you care about these cases that mark families forever. Leave a comment saying, "I watched until the end so I can know you and see who really cares about the search for the truth." Don't forget to like this video and share it with those who also value real stories that remind us of the fragility and strength of human life. The discovery of the remains of the Rodriguez family and Sebastião Pereira reverberated far beyond the borders of Tocantins. In the months following the revelation of the mystery, the case gained national attention, being the subject of special reports in major media outlets, documentaries, and even a book. The map on the stone, The Last Message of the Rodriguez Family, was written by journalist Ricardo Mendonça after extensive research and interviews with everyone involved in the case. One of the most significant consequences was the creation. In December 2023, of the Rodriguez Foundation for Safety in Natural Areas, established by Carlos Rodriguez with the support of universities, ecotourism companies, and government agencies. The foundation is dedicated to developing and implementing more efficient safety protocols for visitors to national parks and conservation areas across Brazil. "The tragedy of my family cannot have been in vain," said Carlos during the foundation's launch. "Every life lost in our natural areas is a life that could have been saved with proper information, accessible technology, and effective protocols." One of the foundation's first projects was the development of a free app called Trilha Segura, Safe Trail, which combines detailed offline maps, an automated alert system that detects when a visitor strays significantly from marked trails, and a mechanism that allows digital breadcrumb small GPS markers that can be followed by rescue teams in case of an emergency. The impact of the case also extended to the scientific field. The analysis of Antonio Rodriguez's diary revealed detailed botanical observations about species of the Cerrado encountered during the expedition, including the description of a potential new species. Researchers from the Federal University of Goiás, the institution where Antonio taught, organized a scientific expedition to the region in May 2024 and confirmed the discovery. The new plant species, a small bromeliad adapted to the extreme conditions of the rocky Cerrado, was officially cataloged as Talantia rodriguezi in honor of the professor. The schools where Lucas and Marina studied established annual scholarships in their names for young people interested in environmental science and conservation. Lucas always talked about following in his father's footsteps and becoming a biologist, recalled a former teacher during the scholarship ceremony. And Marina had a special talent for drawing, especially plants and animals. They would have made a difference in the world. Perhaps the most touching aspect of the family's legacy was its impact on other families living through the drama of unresolved disappearances. The case demonstrated that even after decades, answers can still be found. In the months following the discovery, there was a significant increase in reports of sightings and new information related to other old cases of missing persons in natural areas across Brazil. Two of these cases, one in Chapada Diamantina National Park and another in Serra da Mantiqueira, were reopened and investigations resumed with new technologies. In July 2024, on the anniversary of the disappearance, a special ceremony was held at the exact location where the rock with the inscriptions was found. The site, now part of an official park trail called Trilha da Memoria, Memory Trail, became a place of reflection for visitors. The original rock was preserved under a transparent protective structure, allowing visitors to view the marks left by Antonio, while an explanatory plaque tells the full story of the family. During the ceremony, Helena da Silva, a young geology student who participated in the 2023 expedition that found the inscriptions, shared a reflection that captured the essence of the enduring impact of the story. "When we found those marks on the stone, we didn't just discover the end of a family, but the beginning of a legacy." Those inscriptions remind us that even in the face of imminent death, humans seek to leave their mark, tell their story, make a difference. The Rodriguez family achieved this in a way they never imagined. The case also sparked important discussions about the preparation necessary for adventures in remote areas. Experts emphasized that despite Antonio Rodriguez being experienced and having taken many correct precautions, some essential safety practices in extreme natural environments have evolved significantly since 1995. The tragedy serves as a reminder of the importance of redundant navigation equipment, satellite communicators, and detailed emergency plans, explained João Martins, a survival expert in wilderness environments. Professor Antonio did what he could with the knowledge and technologies available at the time. Today, something as simple as a satellite phone or a personal emergency locator could have completely changed the outcome of this story. For the local community of Materos and the surrounding region, the closure of the case brought a mix of relief and sadness. For years, some residents carried the silent weight of guilt for not being able to find the family in time. It was like a ghost that hung over our community, confessed Maria das Dores, the innkeeper, now 91 years old, where the family had stayed. Now we can finally make peace with the past, knowing we did everything possible at the time. The photographs recovered from the family's camera were gathered into a traveling photo exhibition titled Ultimos Olhos, a Beleza Antes do Adeus, Last Glances, The Beauty Before Goodbye, which toured several Brazilian cities throughout 2024. Exhibition juxtaposed photographs taken by the family with current images of the same locations, creating a dialogue between the past and present, life and memory. One of the most impactful photographs, which became a symbol of the story, shows Lucas and Marina sitting together on a dune, watching the sunset. Captured by Antonio on the first day of the expedition, the image conveys a serenity and beauty that painfully contrasts with the fate awaiting the family just a few days later. Journalist Ricardo Mendonça, author of the book on the case, summed up the enduring impact of the story. What makes the Rodrigues case so moving isn't just the tragedy itself, but how a simple message carved into stone survived time to tell its story. In an era of instant and ephemeral communications, there's something profoundly human and ancestral about leaving a mark on a rock, as our ancestors did in caves. Antonio Rodrigues unknowingly connected to this ancient human tradition of storytelling that survives beyond us. The map on the stone, the last communication of a family that faced their fate with dignity and love, continues to speak to new generations about courage, family, and the importance of valuing every moment of life. A message that, like the very inscriptions on the rock, will withstand the test of time.